worship the machine. Although, I've been accused of being a racist against the machine. It's a great time to be machines. That would be probably one of the most bizarre accusations anyone had to face, really. And I find this really, really amazing that human beings can actually genuflect in front of something that might, well, end up as a nominal thing, probably less in value than an insect. Well, it doesn't live. It doesn't live.
It's an interesting idea and concept, and if I put it this way, if we didn't go down the route of developing these machines and robots, just wait until they put a proper face on there, and the day they can replicate human emotion to a perfect 100% degree, then people would probably start treating them differently as well. If they just can replicate all the attributes that we consider to be human on the surface, at least, then they would be...
That's right, on the surface. That's a crucial point, Henry.
Yes.
If they may be able to do it on the surface, it would be obviously like a Hollywood actor playing a part. It would never be felt, it would never be known, it would never be connected up to a base, a base. As a living being can do it, because we came in with the universe, all of us. We have an ancestral line going back. Now, I hesitated to use the word soul. I was so kind of, non-religious. I didn't want to use the word soul, but it struck me that it's a wonderful way of describing just simply the track back to the beginning, to Godhead. That with what came before the Big Bang, in other words. So what we all have is that unmitigated, uninterrupted line. All living being, even an insect. That's why I believe it's superior, to a machine produced out of parts from within now, here and now, or then, or whatever. But we, living being, always has this beautiful track all the way back in ancestry, all the way back to a beginning. And that is what I call a soul. That line, that track. No magic, if you see what I'm trying to say,
right.
Religious connotation, but simply that track of information, if you like, that goes all the way back for each and every one of us. And as you say, in the creation of machines with plastic faces and plastic emotions, they are always going to be plastic emotions, because you cannot program into a mechanism what it is to feel and know self. That is completely important. You have a pseudo-self or a pseudo-emotion, but never a real one that can track back and have a point from which you can take an original reference. And that original reference, if it then encapsulates an entirety of understanding in the whole, that's why I call the God-verse that which is whole and absolute. And again, I don't want to seem religious when I do this. It's really a very secular point I'm making. I hope that you will understand that. Mm-hmm. That we can see these things outside the norms of things called religion or whatever. But I really don't like, I have to say I'm allergic to organized religion, but the problem is quite simply that you get all kinds of charlatans and nonsense written about these kinds of, religious people and so forth, that, it's very strange. It's very puzzling for people how the son of a god, shall we say, in the Christian ethic, the Christian teacher, Yeshua ben Yosef, comes and says, love thy neighbor as thyself, and the entire cascade comes about the opposite way, killing each other, if you see what I'm trying to say. So people get very kind of, worked up about this, and I don't like, and to associate it with religion for that reason, basically.
Yes. Nigel, I think we should do like this. I have one more question I want to fire off to you here, and then maybe we can take a little break at that point and continue, because we have so much more to discuss. We've only reached halfway through here and some of the points that we want to bring up. But if we talk about this final little point or question here, and then we can take a little break, and you can mention your websites, of course, before we do that. But I wonder if these machines, again, then have so much intelligence in that sense that they have the possibility of developing at least a pseudo kind of ego, if you know what I mean by that word, that they have such a the intelligence is there to analyze things enough to realize that they lack things, and in this case we're talking about a soul.
I take your point, but you see, it's important when we think about intelligence and the intelligence that these things have to understand that they're really a compound interest addition process and subtraction process. They just add one fact to another. They don't have a sense of analysis of that fact only in a mathematical sense of yes or no, the binary system. It's just a simple choice point. So when we talk about intelligence, it's not this overwhelming kind of permutative combination of all things and arriving at a reference against which they can place that. See, that's what we have, I believe, that gives living intelligence always a much greater stance over anything that is created as an artificial intelligence. We can refer that back to a central thesis and then compare that. If we go back to a thing called a Godverse point, then all knowledge is there, and the reference with which we learn anything is placed against the whole compendium of knowledge, so to speak, you know? And that is an incredible advantage, and that gives you a sense of self-identity, a sense of reference. Now, when you make a machine, and the machine intelligence, what they call artificial intelligence, is really adding all these things and making larger numbers possible quicker, if you see what I mean. And in fact, you know, Henrik, people acknowledge now that the computers have gone as far as they can. In fact, all basic kind of procedures and so on can't progress any further than this. You can make quantize and think in huge multiples of the thing they're doing now, but multiplied many times over. But they themselves aren't anything but dumb. That's the point. A machine is always going to be dumb. But if something comes in from the beginning of the universe, it brings in, I believe, that whole amount of knowledge, the center of absolutes where all things are in perfect union and harmony. That then gives you the information to make, if you like, from that a incredible assessment of all things as a comparator, as a point against another point, and so forth. And that cannot be beaten. You have to be created, if you like, by the very existential design itself. And that's what even the humblest of us human beings is. It might teach us, perhaps, if we look at it that way, not to take each other for granted so much, you know. And that's what I'm hoping the books will finally show by looking at the alternative, like the Greys, if you like.
Very good. Well, why don't we do like this then? We'll take a short break here, Nigel, and then we'll carry on talking more here in our next segment for our members. But to round things up for us, why don't you mention the titles of your books again, of course, and also your website, so people know where to go to get a copy and read more about you and your work.
Yes, my first book was Song of the Greys. All copies have been sold. We are waiting for a publisher to republish that particular one. The second one is called Alien Greys and the Harvesting of Souls. Alien Greys and the Harvesting of Souls, published by I've forgotten the name of my publisher. Inner Traditions, and it's actually Bear & Company in America. Okay. I mean, I don't, please understand, and this is not any kind of false thing I'm saying here. I don't like advertising my books. I like people to find them in their own terms, and maybe that's a better discovery process. But yes, okay, they must know it's there, mustn't they? You know?
Absolutely, and that's what we're doing here, trying to highlight some interesting material. And again, the website is nigelkerner.com. It will be linked up on redaxcreations.com for everyone to click through easily from there. But thanks for this first segment, Nigel. Stay with us then, and we'll continue after this break. That is our first hour with Nigel Kerner. Very interesting, but we're really just getting started. Join us in our member section if you want to hear more as we continue to talk about genetic engineering, the origin of the Caucasian race. We talk about albinos and Noah, the biblical patriarch, as a possible albino, and that his ark with two of every animal was a big part of a genetic experiment about basically rebooting life here on Earth. We talk about the research of Dr. David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins. We discuss DNA databases, heterozygote and homozygous, and advantages when it comes to genetic diversity. We talk about the Nazis and their eugenics experiments and the creation of a new human. What about the Aryan super race and the alien race that have been termed the Nordics? The question is if the Greys are responsible for certain races on this planet. We also briefly talk about the inbreeding of the royal monarchies of Europe and the connection to the Egyptian dynasties.